talk about these other things, which is what is Korea's view of itself in the world in the future? Is it kind of a France independent middle power that can be a player internationally, or is it more of a kind of a U.S. alliance partner, kind of almost an Australia kind of situation where they want to be with us to do different things because that's the way of ensuring the offshore balancing role of the United States, or is it more independent than that? And these things give them, I think, in their mind, certain capabilities to be able to do these types of things. But I'm not sure they've made up their mind yet, or there's consensus about what's Korea's role in this area.
Any concern about energy supply or something?
I think without a doubt, I mean, that the sea lane protection, I mean, you could say, why do you need, you know, so far the U.S. is taking care of it pretty well, and Japan helps out, and but I think they want to have some ability to be a partner in that.
Gordon.
Thank you. I thought it was a very fascinating presentation. I'm curious. It may be too early for you to give an answer, but given that we're back several months behind now, you've already had semi-crisis. At least what would have been a crisis in the past in North Korea? I remember 10 plus years ago when North Korea set the sea on fire, it just caused massive ripples all throughout South society and in the United States, for that matter. And now they went a step further and said not only will we control the sea of fire, but it will be actions afterwards. Kind of the equivalent of saying not only will I murder you, but you'll be dead. Yeah. But the response from South Korea seems to be remarkably quiet. In fact, I would say admirably quiet. Not only the public response in terms of it not being a factor in the election, but particularly the Blue House and this team. Have you heard any anecdotes of how this team reacted, how the system kind of kicked into play? You alluded to it, but I'm curious if there's any early lessons you've drawn in that.
Unfortunately, I haven't had any. I'm supposed to meet some people in another week or two, and I hope to get some better information. But you know, I think there's a sense of confidence in terms of the alliance right now in this administration that gives them more comfort in terms of responding more casually to that. They're really not concerned that we're going to do something crazy, or that they know we have their back, and there's been a lot of talk about whether or not other gestures would be made in terms of the alliance, like, well, maybe we would stop reducing our troop withdrawals and leave more than 28,000 there, and we would make other gestures. We might push off OPCON transfer. General Bell made some comments a little while ago, yesterday or so, that this talk of bridging capabilities and extending out, so it's not 2012 as a drop-dead date, and you have more time to develop these things. So I think there's more confidence there, but it seems to be that office within the Blue House that is the convener of the main players to decide collectively. And I guess, I don't know what the chemistry is like amongst them in terms of, but they put a good face forward in terms of calm and orderly response.
Ambassador Sun?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that the Prime Minister has the primary responsibility to define and manage the crisis. But you also said that in the Blue House there's one organizational mechanism to handle the crisis. But in history and practice, if a real crisis takes place, then all those organizational mechanisms are broken. You mentioned the case of Afghanistan. See, regardless of all those existing mechanisms, the KCIA involved.
Yeah.
And then former director of CIA, he was bragging off openly. You see, I don't think that will change with the new administration. And finally, I would mention one more thing. At the beginning of Kim Dae-jung government, I was part of the government. I was the second man of the foreign ministry at the time. And we were attempting to draw a plan of contingency in case of North Korea's crisis. So we attempted to include, as a part of the contingency plan, sending in a military and/or police force. And then during the course of coordination with the American government, the U.S. government was standing in the way. so we dropped. We omitted the clause on sending in the military and police force in North Korea. So regardless of your hard work on the organizational mechanisms, if any crisis of real important nature, magnitude takes place, then the Korean government is not prepared in an organized way.
Care to respond?
No, I think there's probably a lot of truth there.
Mark.
Two questions, Jim. One on security, one on specialization. You mentioned Japan, the Japanese, and the Chinese reaction. You looked at how the South Koreans tried to handle this issue regionally, and it strikes me that Japan's neighbors are freaking out over what Japan is doing when you have decreasing defense budgets in Tokyo. But there's a lot more going on the Korean side that people aren't up in arms about. Is that more due to the nature of Korea, a smaller country, than the historical baggage? Or does South Korean diplomacy have something to do with that? And then on your first slide, you mentioned that we, the United States, should encourage South Korea to specialize. What types of areas were you thinking about?
Yeah.
So if you were dealing with North Korea, we think about tunneling. Tunnel technology, teaching Hezbollah tunnels or something like that. What would the South Koreans over there niche be?
Yeah. Well, on the defense spending and kind of the security dilemma piece, I mean, certainly compared to Japan, I mean, they only got 7.2% increase in the defense budget in 2007 and 9% this year, and so there is a lot of investment going on. I think Japan really kind of understands. I think the Japan-ROC relationship is pretty good, especially on the mill-to-mill front. They've been very proud of in the last couple of years, they've developed these hotlines with sector commanders for air defense, and they've gone down to zero in terms of scrambles of Japanese fighter aircraft in response to invasions of their airspace from Korea. They're still at about 50 to 70 with China, I think, a year. But they got down to zero because they can pick up a phone and say, you're getting pretty close over there to this this boundary. Do you realize where you are? And oh, sorry, then move back in a few hundred yards and take care of that. And that level of communication, I think, has been pretty good. They recognize the OPCON transfer, the base realignment. They're going through their own realignment and the spending that requires. We're asking for them to spend now half on host nation support. That's another battle, another drain on resources domestically. And the capabilities, they're not building missiles, and they're not, in many ways, they're building the same things that Japan is building, just slightly bigger. And all the press releases talk about how they're even bigger than the Congo class, and so Japan has its handful, I think, with China and North Korea in terms of its security thinking. So it's not too worried in that context. I don't know what China thinks, and North Korea ought to be concerned in terms of the increasing capabilities, but so far that's my sense. But others may feel differently. But it's been fairly subdued in terms of the reaction. But missile-wise is one of the biggest issues, I think, and submarine development would change the equation a little bit. Those are the two I think that Japan is more concerned about. Specialization, I tend to think if I was greedy from a U.S. alliance perspective, I'd want them to kind of do things like go into Afghanistan with a PRT. And I feel like we're getting a little greedy in that sense. If I would almost push them more into the UN PKO, get into Darfur. Go ahead, get Japan rejected a request for transport helicopters and other kind of helicopter support, be the one who steps up and says, okay, we'll be